change the world.
On we go.
Greetings, wonderful people, and welcome back to Coffee Over Apples, where we talk about everything arts, books, and education. So today's video, I decided I'd come up with an idea for a new series, and that series is officially going to be titled A Picture's Worth 1,000 Words. So I was trying to come up with ideas as to how I can incorporate booktube and arttube together in other ways just besides talking about art books. And I recently found something that was hidden away for like 20 years, and that was inside this very old copy of Harry Potter that I have. I found something I drew when I was in middle school. That shows you how long it's been since I reread this series. I found a really old bookmark. I don't know if you can see, it has like this little anime girl drawn on it. This is back when I used to watch Inuyasha. I was thinking about, what if I did illustrations based off of my five-star reads, which don't come very often, because if you saw my video on ranking my 5-star reads from the past 10 years, only about 20% of my reading has been worth 5 stars. So I thought this would be a fun way to kind of get some warm up and do something a little bit artsy and fun every time I read a book that really hits me in the feels. So yeah, without further ado, here we go. Alright, so here we are in front of my sketchbook, my beautiful sketchbook. Please disregard my crusty nails because we are on day 37 of the quarantine and it is hard to get some nails done around here, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and start with sketching out the idea for the book. The book that I read was called Educated by Tara Westover, and it's the story of this girl who grows up in this cultish family who's concerned about the end of the world and Y2K and all this crazy stuff. They grow up in rural Idaho, and they're a Mormon family in a Mormon community, and they take everything to the extreme, and this poor girl goes through some really horrible stuff. Like, they completely cut themselves off from society, but the amount of abuse that she goes through and mental trauma in order to make sure that she has an education, and watching her older brothers and sisters leave the family, and because they realize the amount of abuse that's going on is not normal. So she takes it upon herself to leave the nest in order to get herself a college education, even though she hasn't even gone to high school. So I really wanted to focus on the fact that she kind of climbed these mountains and, you know, fought what was being given to her, her situation, in order to better herself, even though the cover of the book did a really good job. But again, I'm not redesigning cover, I'm designing a bookmark, and I really like the sketch that I just did here, so I'm just gonna go along with that. So I've decided to use multiple materials for this. I'm using a piece of Bristol paper, and then I'm also going to be using Posca pens, and these are my fancy handy dandy Copic markers. Oh, look at how fancy they are. They're so fancy. I got these on like a super sale. Ask any artist, they'll tell you these are the best markers out there. So in regards to the book, there was a part that I wanted to share, and this is not really like a spoiler because it happens in the very beginning, maybe like the first 10 minutes of the book or something like that, and it's one of her memories that I want to share to kind of give a glimpse as to how this girl was thinking in regards to what her family was teaching her. So it says that when Tara was listening to her mother argue with the government workers over the phone about when her birthday is to get a birth certificate, Tara, as a little girl, thought to herself, why do people keep giving my mom a hard time? She just changed her birthday each year to a fun day of the week because Sunday is not fun spending your birthday in church. So her mother and her father never got her a birth certificate. I think they had like 7 kids or something like that, and by like the 2nd or 3rd kid, they just stopped giving them birth certificates because they figured that when the world ends, it wouldn't matter anyway. And so like, when they actually needed to do stuff and they needed a birth certificate, the mom and dad didn't remember when their birthday was, and so every time that they would call a government agency to like get any kind of paperwork that they needed, of course the social workers would be like, excuse me, how do you not know when your kid's birthday is? Why are you guessing? But her as a little girl thought it was normal, and she thought everybody else was just trying to give her parents a hard time. So it just kind of like gives an insight into how much brainwashing was really going on, or just how much they didn't like let their kids understand what happened on the outside world. So her parents were using all their resources to stockpile because they thought that when the year 2000 hit at midnight, like all the computers were going to shut down and the whole world was going to an end. And then there was a part of the book where her dad like took all his money and tried to put it into gold and silver coins, because he figured that's the only thing that would be tradable when the world ends. And so when he's questioned about it by his kids, he says, well, when the days of abomination come, people will trade $100 bill for a piece of toilet paper. And my face went, well, because we are not too far from that now, so he's not too wrong. However, just the way he was going about things was so extreme. And like it was one of those things where if everything went the way that they wanted, then it was God's will, and if even if everything turned out wrong, then it wasn't God's will, which is fine if that's what you believe in. But their children were getting limbs cut off, and like people were dying, and like all these horrible things were happening and to their children, and like they got into 2 car accidents and they did not wear seatbelts. And after the first car accident, after all the brain trauma and everything that went on, they're like, you know what? We're still not gonna wear a seatbelt. So it's like, come on, like at what point do you learn your lesson? And so when she started like integrating with normal society and finding out like this extreme behavior is not normal, she started to question what was going on. And then so it's like going through her journey of starting from nothing and not having any kind of education whatsoever, and then realizing that education is the key to her freedom. It was like so heartwarming, and the reason I gave it a 5-star was just because like it shows resilience, and resilience is everything, I think, when you're following your dreams, because everyone talks about how successful so-and-so is and how we want to be just like so-and-so, but nobody ever really talks about the many times that they failed in order to get there. And so she talks about her failures and about her repeating the same mistakes, and her family's like repeating the same mistakes. And it was just really, really sad. And her story was really powerful, and I feel like we all could benefit from reading it in some way. Now, I read a couple of reviews online of people saying that they didn't really think, like, her story didn't make sense to them, and I guess I can understand that, because they were saying things like how it shouldn't be possible for her to be able to get a college degree when she never even got to high school, and kind of just like self-teach herself everything. But I don't know if that's necessarily true, just because like people are capable of anything that they want. It's about how bad do you want it, you know what I mean? And that's not saying that you don't want it bad enough just because you didn't get it, but like she was lucky enough to be able to figure out what it took to reach her goals. And her story of how she got there, I think, was just an amazing testament as to how we can achieve our goals. So I thought it was really beautiful, and like I binge read it. I think I read it in like a day or 2 days or something like that. Also, like, her parents were extremely racist. There was this other part in the book, which I thought was really profound and kind of showed how people can change. And that's when her older brother had the habit of calling her the N-word. And like when she was little, she didn't know what it meant because she didn't know any African American people. And so she was just like, okay, whatever. But then when she finally got a history lesson and learned the meaning of the N-word, and he kept calling her that, now that she knew what it meant, like, it hurt her because she knew what that word did to other people, and she knew that it was his ignorance that was driving him to use it, because he himself didn't even understand what it meant. So I think that it was like really interesting to show like just how people can grow when they get more knowledge, and that not everybody is stagnant. Like, you have to be willing to receive information. And her family was extremely misogynistic and like extremely homophobic. Like the whole time I was reading this and every time her family would talk about something, I kept remembering that episode of South Park with the member berries. Do you remember?
Yeah, remember when marriage was just between a man and a woman? I remember feeling safe. Remember no ISIS? Remember raging? Oh, I remember.
So yeah, her parents had no chill. But yeah, so I don't want to really spoil the book too much. I mean, there's really not too much to spoil plot-wise because you kind of know from the synopsis that it's about her like coming from nothing and coming from this cult-ish like nuclear family and then finding her way to a college degree. But it's all the stuff that happened in between there, all of the family drama, all of the abuse, the mental abuse, the physical abuse that she had to deal with in order to get there. So this book is more about her journey than anything else. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let you enjoy the rest of this speed drawing while I wrap it up. So enjoy! this was way more fun than you just watching me sit there and talk about the book. I got to draw something about it, got to get a little keepsake out of it, and it's kind of like an artistic interpretation and a warm-up before I go start painting. So, oh, that was fun. I think I'll do this again. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that interesting. I don't know if this is something I should continue doing. Let me know if you guys really enjoyed this. I was also thinking about in the future starting a Patreon as like maybe a fun way to kind of interact with everyone. If anybody would be interested in getting this bookmark as a fun reward on Patreon, as for a gift for the patrons on Patreon, let me know. Maybe that's something that I'll start. I'll see you next time. Bye!
What's it making, Mr. Wonka? Mr. Wonka worked the factory.
In your wild